Just so I don't get carried away, I'll set a timer here. You'll understand that in a few moments. Anyway, the Stewardship Committee asked us to talk about how we got here, what brought us back, what activities we've been involved in, and what was meaningful to us, among some other topics. So I'll cover a few of those. But before I get into that, just a little bit of background. Some of you may know I'm originally from North Carolina. I grew up as a Presbyterian, but some of the family had evangelical and Baptist backgrounds. In fact, my grandmother on my mother's side had 5 brothers, all were tent revivalists. Now, I don't think I went that track, but anyway, but it seems that I inherited some of those DNA as part of speaking. In fact, Jeannie would say that I never met a microphone I did not like. And most of you, I know, would agree with that if you spend any time around me. So how did I get here? Well, after graduating from NC State and being commissioned as a lieutenant in the Army, I was stationed at NSA at Fort Meade. There I met Jeannie's cousin's husband, who arranged a blind date, and he chaperoned us to make sure I had honorable intentions. And so when Jeannie came out, I thought, well, this can't be my date. Where is the sister? But anyway, the past July, we celebrated 49 years. But Jeannie says it's really only 19, as I traveled 40 weeks a year, was in 45 states and 25 countries. So I wasn't around home or here much at times. And Jeannie would also say, well, on those long flights you used to take, don't those people's ears hurt? Like transatlantic and all the way to Australia, aren't their ears really hurting? Well, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, as usual. After marriage, we settled in Westminster and selected Ascension Episcopal Church there over Presbyterian, as I was not a good churchgoer, but I give myself credit for being a bit above a C&E member. I'm a little bit above that level. But I was made to feel very welcome there, and the priest said, you know, don't give up your Presbyterian ways, bring them with you, and along with you. So they were so welcoming. But this parish is even more welcoming, by the way. So how did we get to St. Peter's? In 1983, we moved to Ellicott City, and as Jeannie was a cradle Episcopalian, and her dad was Episcopal for 50 years in the Episcopal Church, 25 of those here, and he knew something about being a stewardship, evidently. So Jeannie brought me here. That's how I got here. Well, what brought me back? Well, one Sunday morning, Jeannie and the boys were getting ready to go to church. Remember, I was not a good churchgoer. And Jason said, our oldest son, said, I don't have to go because Daddy's not going. And Jeannie says, oh, but Daddy will be going. So ever since then, in case you haven't noticed, pretty much I've been in that back row back there ever since then. And I'll say willingly and joyfully. Some of our family's activities supporting stewardship include the audit committee, and that was really with the help of our resident CPA, Ron Antlitz. And we did that for a bunch of years. And one time I was a bit late in getting it done, and one of the vestry members, and you can relate to this as in other activities, came to me and said, we'll harass you, we'll cajole you, we'll humiliate you, but we'll never fire you. So you know how that goes when you get on these committees. I had trouble a couple of years getting help, so Jeannie volunteered to help with the audit, but she was a little frustrated, and she asked Father Kirk, are you sure this is the Lord's work? Here comes another example of that microphone. I was at Master of Ceremonies some years back, I can't remember how long ago it was, along with Joe Canby, and he was the auctioneer for a fundraiser. And I think this will amaze people that weren't around at that time. We had over 300 people at the armory off of 103 over there, and we had 300 auction items, and we made over $25,000. I mean, it was in Phil Shaw and a lot of people like that did a lot of the behind work, and Joe and I were up front there. So, in fact, people wondered, well, how could you do this with traveling? I had just got back from Saudi Arabia. the day before. But I thought, oh my, 300 people and a wireless microphone. It doesn't get any better. So all of a sudden I had an adrenaline rush and I was able to get through that. I was part of the faith and renewal effort. This was kind of looking into, like we do with some of our other programs here. Both sons, so it's not all about what I did, or it's about all of our family. Both our sons did Eagle projects here. Jason, the front of the rectory, you couldn't even see it back then. It had so much underbrush, and they took truckloads of debris away, and he did some painting. The younger son, when they redid the parking lot, what he did was he built a holding area back here for the flowers and bushes, so we didn't lose all that. And when they finished the work, he moved it back. I was also on the bishop's ministry team, which is a quasi-vestry under the direction of the bishop during imperilment, and also helped during the floods, Jeannie and I did, for a couple of weeks until I tore my hamstring. Out here right on this hallway, I tore my hamstring. So I went on injured reserve, and I now know why football players and athletes don't do much with their hamstring. Most recently, I was head of the search committee for Father Derek's calling. But the most rewarding for me was the BMT, the Bishop's Ministry Team, to get us out of imperilment. Once we asked one time, what do you do next? And they said, nobody has ever got this far. So we really did a great effort there, lots of good work by a lot of people. And with Father Tom Slauson back then, we were able to get out of imperilment when most churches don't. So that was pretty significant. And also it was helping, Jeannie and I helping with the flood. So 40 years later, and over 10 priests and interims witnessing up and downs, is you and your stewardship and this sense of community that keeps bringing us back, by the way. It's the various people on the vestry, squad, altar guild, flower guild, choir, parish care, and many outreach activities. Too many people to name, and I'm sure I would miss some. What you do is noticed and appreciated. For us, this community has been there with Jeannie's parents' passing, my medical challenges starting with a malignant lymph node in the neck in 1997, more recently with a heart attack with COVID complications. I won't bore you with a medical organ recital, as I probably have already done that downstairs and with another microphone. Anyway, I think it's time for my mic to be parked. So thank you very much.